In this lesson, we'll learn about the principle of slow in and slow out. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we have a little windmill here, little windmill animation. I'll go ahead and click play. So you can see how the actual sails are turning there. And so it starts and ends very abruptly. And everything in between is just very linear and constant, okay? And so it's all kind of jarring when you think about it. It feels very abrupt and robotic. And so this is where thinking about slow in and slow out can really make a big difference. And if you've already watched lesson 2 where we were working on our timing and spacing with the bouncing ball, we actually incorporated some slow in and slow out for when the ball was coming up and then back down, just thinking about the whole concept of gravity pulling on that ball. It's going to reach a certain height, kind of slowing down before it starts to crash back down to the surface. So what we have here for our windmill for the sails is I have a peg that I basically set a couple of keyframes for. Okay, so I basically have the first keyframe recording its position right there, and then I rotated it a few times and set a keyframe at the very end of the animation. And again, if we click play, you can see how that's looking. Very, very constant, very linear, very robotic. Now, if we go into the click on that little plus right there for the peg, come down here to where it says rotation. Double click on that, and this will take you into our little graph editor here, where we can start to adjust these keyframes, adjust their values, and really adjust this entire curve in the way that the interpolation is happening in between our first keyframe and our last one, to really kind of have some slowing in and slowing out. So for this first keyframe, I'm just selecting it there. I'm going to go ahead, after selecting it, take the little Bezier handle, and I'll kind of start to pull it out, right? And so what we're doing is we're kind of extending out the range of that value a little bit further, so it's going to kind of be closer to that initial value the more we kind of bulge out this line here. And so the interpolation is not going to be so consistent. I'm going to do the opposite down here with this last one, and this is basically allowing us to ease into that last one. And if you want to kind of reframe everything here, you can hit this button. It'll kind of readjust everything. So you should have a curve for something like this type of animation where you're trying to slow in and slow out. It'll look something kind of like this kind of motion, okay, somewhere in your graph. So with that done, we could go ahead, come back to the beginning of our animation here, click play. Notice how it kind of starts off slow, picks up speed, and then begins to slow down. And of course, you could come in here and start to kind of tweak this even more. But basically, we don't have a straight line anymore, meaning that it's not a consistent linear interpolation, okay, between the two keyframes. So really cool stuff, really easy, especially if you just have one drawing like this attached to a peg that you've basically rotated. Right? So feel free to kind of break that down in the project file, which would be 07_end. So we've got another example that I want to kind of work through with you as far as slowing in and slowing out. So here we have a little character sitting on a box, and it's just like just a few drawings right here. We just got 8 different drawings where he's going to be just getting up and getting ready to walk away. If we kind of start to play this, you can see how it's very sudden. He just gets up, okay? And ideally, to make this feel just a little bit more natural, we want to kind of ease him into, have him kind of raise up off of this box, or at least kind of get ready to pull his body up off of this box before he takes off walking, okay? That way it doesn't feel like it's so abrupt or sudden, okay? So I probably want to add in maybe 2 or 3 drawings kind of right here at the beginning, just some in-between drawings to kind of help ease him, kind of slow into the action that he's about to perform. I'm going to go ahead and come forward 1, 2, 3 drawings, and I'll delete those right there where the first drawing got its exposure extended. And what I'll do is I'll turn on my onion skin, and I'm going to go ahead, and this looks like we'll go ahead and use this layer right here. We'll go ahead and call this sketch. Okay, and then this layer here is our box. All right, so on this layer here, I'll just use blue. What I'll do is I'll just kind of loosely sketch out what I have in mind here. I'll pause the video and just kind of go over it with some clean line work, and then we'll play it again so you guys can kind of see it just a little bit more clearly. But basically, I just kind of want to start to ease his body kind of forward. Okay, and so again, this is kind of something we did with the bouncing ball, kind of thinking about that spacing, how it's really close together, and then it becomes further and further apart, kind of like when that ball would come to a stop. So his head will be just kind of, his head and his body just initially will kind of go ahead and come forward just a little bit. So it might look kind of something like that. Okay. And then we've got another drawing here where we're just going to kind of come forward just a little bit more. I may want to kind of take this handle down here to something like that so I can see my previous sketch. So I'm kind of starting to straighten out that back just a little bit. I'm increasing my spacing just a little bit more now. So you can kind of see the progression of the spacing right there. And then as we get to here, we'll increase it even more. And I'll go ahead and kind of pull that handle back just a little bit more so I can kind of see where I've come from. So on this third one, his back will be a little bit more straighter because he's bending, and that spacing will be even more so. Okay, so you can kind of see that spacing. Mostly right here, I'm kind of tracking the head. That's kind of what I'm looking at right here. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about as far as easing him in, slowing him into the action of him getting ready to take off walking. So just those are kind of some little guidelines that I've just very quickly and loosely dropped in there. But I'm mostly kind of looking at the head, and I'm also thinking about just the back itself, kind of slightly starting to kind of straighten it and bend it just a little bit as he comes forward. So these are just kind of some guidelines. What I'd like to show you next, I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and kind of just clean these up, and then I'll kind of show you what it looks like just a little bit more clearly. And again, we'll kind of talk about kind of the spacing that we have there with our in-between drawings. Okay, so for these 3 drawings, I basically just added some line work so you can see it just a little bit more clearly. And what I'll go ahead and do is I'll click play. And you can see how he just gets up just a little bit more slowly now than before. So he's kind of slowing into that action. If we turn on our onion skinning here, again, you can kind of see that spacing that I'm talking about. So here's our initial pose. And you can kind of see that spacing, and then it gets just a little bit further apart as he starts to rise up. So we're kind of gradually slowing into the action of him now getting up off of the box. Okay, so that's something just kind of explore with slow in and slow out. It's something that we've kind of used on some of our other examples, especially just right at the beginning with the bouncing ball, whether the ball was following where it's bouncing across, following those arcs. You know, you get to the top of the arc and it kind of, you kind of slow in and slow out right there on the top of those arcs before it starts to pick up speed and come back down to earth. So this is just another one of those principles that it'll give your animations just a lot more fluidity. Things will feel a lot less rigid and abrupt. So you can kind of start to see as we go through these different principles, of these 12 principles of animation, how they all seem to kind of give you a little bit of fluidity, each in their own way. And as you begin to combine them all together, you can really have some beautiful animation. So I really like slow in and slow out. It's something that is very useful with animation. In our next lesson, we're going to go ahead and move on to another one of the 12 principles of animation. Again, these principles were conceived by Disney animators back in the early days, the golden age of animation, and they really do transcend just beyond 2D animation as well. You see these same principles even in 3D animation. So we'll be talking about anticipation in our next lesson, so we'll see you then.